What's going on, guys? It's me, Jason. Welcome back to the channel. Today is draft day. This is what we've been working towards for the last 6 months here. 50 plus film sessions that we've done for days like this, for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. It is draft day. We have finally made it. So, of course, we're going to do a mock draft here. Just of the first round, we're going to talk about just a few things, why I think things are going to go this way, some trades that I would do. And so we're going to quickly get into it. Before we do that, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up, that subscribe button, notification bell as well. I do greatly appreciate it. Let's get into it. So first, the Carolina Panthers are going to be on the clock here. And obviously, I'm just interested in their quarterback rankings. Actually, their quarterback rankings look pretty much like mine. That's funny. So Carolina, you're getting a guy that's a leader of men, a productive player in college with over 8,000 passing yards and 79 touchdowns. You guys have been desperate for a quarterback, from Kyle Allen to Will Grier to PJ Walker, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, hell, even back to Cam Newton. Your purgatory is over, Panthers fans. Because with the first pick, the Carolina Panthers are going to select Bryce Young, quarterback out of Alabama. As I said, productive player, 8,000 passing yards. And most importantly, he's a leader of men. Nobody has an issue following him. He's just small. And that's the only flaw in his game. Now, here's where it's going to get freaky, right? So, I believe the Houston Texans are going to trade this pick, right? And I believe they're going to trade it with their own division rival, kind of like how Dallas and Philadelphia did for Devontae Smith and Micah Parsons. I believe they're going to do something similar here. So, what's going to happen is they're going to trade the second pick to Indianapolis. Indianapolis is going to give them 4. Going to give them 138 and 162, right? So you're going to execute this trade here. We're going to offer it. I mean, the trade is likely to be accepted. We'll offer the trade here. So we do that because, one, Houston's done a good job of not showing their hand, which is fantastic by Nick Caserio and D'Amico Ryans. And 2, Indianapolis wants to get the guy that they want, right? They don't want to risk losing a guy at 2, or then, Arizona trades down, they lose the guy at 3. So they just go up, stick with the devil that you know, and just go get your guy. I think they go up to select Kentucky quarterback Will Levis, right? Just watching tape, I have Will Levis as my second-ranked quarterback. I know a lot of people don't like him. But I think the big arm, the quick release, and just what he had to play with, like in college, just the bad offensive line, the different offensive coordinators, like he had to go through some stuff to be this good. Like it wasn't easy. He didn't have multiple first-round picks at receiver and things like that. So he had to work his way through a lot of mud here. So I'm going to select him second overall to Indianapolis because, much like Panthers fans, they've been in purgatory post Andrew Luck, and this is the guy you want to lead your organization. So third overall, we're not going to overthink it here. Arizona has so many holes here. If they were picking a little bit later, I probably would have went offensive line. You got to protect your quarterback. But when you stink, you build through the trenches, and that's how you build your team. That's how you rebuild your team. So we're going to go Will Anderson, defensive end, linebacker, edge rusher, out of Alabama, who we did a film session on, which you can go back and watch. So at 4, we're going to have the Texans back on the clock here. And the Texans, while 2 quarterbacks are still sitting there, they're still going to pass on a quarterback, right? Houston Texans are going to go ahead and select an edge rusher here. They're going to go ahead and select Tyree Wilson. For the last 3 months, like I said, everyone has mocked the quarterback to Houston, but much like Arizona, you rebuild through the trenches. D'Amico Ryans is coming from San Francisco, where for years all they did was draft defensive linemen from Solomon Thomas, Javon Kinlaw, Eric Armstead. They just build through the defensive line, and that's how they're so successful. I trust D'Amico to get a defensive end. Is going to come in day one and set the edge and start sacking the quarterback. So I'm going to go Tyree Wilson here. So we get to pick 5. Pick 5, Seattle gave up 151 rushing yards per game last season. They need to get someone in the middle who can dominate against the run, and I believe that's Jalen Carter. And there are some maturity concerns, but the tape is undeniable. And I think when you have a player like Jalen Carter who has some issues, the perfect kind of coach is Pete Carroll, who can embrace that player, love on that player. He's a player's coach, and everybody speaks well of Pete Carroll and the way that he runs his team. Players who look different, who are different colors, who have different religions, different positions. Everybody speaks the same way about Pete Carroll, and they all love to play for him, and they'll run through a wall for him. And I think that is the kind of coach. You don't need an authoritarian coach who's going to say you're doing this wrong. You need a coach that's going to be empathetic and embrace you, and have a defensive staff that's going to do the same thing. And I think that Seattle is the absolute most perfect spot for Jalen Carter. So at pick 6, the Detroit Lions, they were tied for 28th in points allowed. One of the best passing offenses, one of the best offenses in general, and one of the worst defenses. They hit on a lot of their defensive draft picks last year, including Aiden Hutchinson, Josh Pascal, Malcolm Rodriguez, James Houston. I think if you add another defensive piece, specifically to the secondary, I think it really helps out, especially them being 28th against in points allowed and being almost last against the pass. So now you have to decide which corner you feel is the best corner. I have said since I did his film session that Christian Gonzalez is the absolute best corner in the entire class, and I still stand by that. So I'm going to go ahead and take Christian Gonzalez here at 6. Now, Devin Witherspoon, Deontay Banks, Joey Porter Jr., Emmanuel Forbes, all fantastic players. Fantastic. But Christian Gonzalez, I believe, is far more refined, especially leaving Colorado and then going to Oregon, became an absolute beast with proper coaching. And I think sending him over there to work with Aaron Glenn, I think it'll do wonders. So at pick 7, we're going to have the Las Vegas Raiders on the clock here. And for the Raiders, I think just in general, you have to get better in the trenches on both sides of the ball. But I think in this draft specifically, in the first round, you need to get better on the offensive line. Your tackles played solid for you. Colton Miller is really coming into his own. I think you need to insert someone in at guard to help solidify that offensive line, keep the pocket clean for Jimmy Garoppolo. And you do that by taking Peter Skoronski, the tackle from Northwestern, who is projected to play inside at guard because he has small arms or short arms. I think he's going to be a dominant guard, and I think sliding him in Las Vegas will definitely help out and help get the Raiders back on track there. So at pick 8 is going to be the Falcons. So I'm just going to reset the board here for a second. So Devin Witherspoon's on the board, CJ Stroud, Bijan Robinson, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Dalton Kincaid, Anthony Richardson. So we got 2 quarterbacks on the board, top receiver, top running back, and the top corner to some people. So I think for Atlanta, when you look at who's available here, as we continue to scroll down, so we get to Paris Johnson, Miles Murphy, Deontay Banks, Broderick Jones, Joey Porter, Darnell Wright. A lot of pieces that you can use if you're Atlanta. So what you probably want to do is you probably want to try to move this pick, right? And so I think Tennessee is where we're going to have a run at quarterback, right? So what we're going to have is we're going to have the Tennessee Titans. They are going to come up with Atlanta. They are going to trade. Atlanta's going to, of course, give them 8, give them 113. Tennessee's going to give them 11 and 72. And we're going to go ahead and force this trade through. So the Tennessee Titans are going to trade up to 8. They're going to come up to select CJ Stroud, the quarterback out of Ohio State. Ryan Tannehill is in the final year of his deal and is coming off injury, while Malik Willis showed up in his he showed us in a small sample size that he's not ready. CJ comes in and brings prototypical size and a big arm. He has elite touch when passing, brings some elusiveness as well, which is what you need when you're playing behind an offensive line that gave up the 5th most sacks. But I think Tennessee needs to get serious about their quarterback position and their wide receiver position, and I think you can address the wide receiver in the 2nd round. But this is a franchise quarterback that can carry you for the next 10 to 15 years if you protect him and get him some weapons. So CJ Stroud's going to Tennessee Titans via trade. So pick 9, Chicago's going to be on the clock here. I think Chicago, much like earlier, we're going to have another trade inside of the division, right? Because Chicago, while they're rebuilding, they would love to have a few more picks on day 2 and day 3. So we're going to actually execute a trade here, and ironically enough, the Green Bay Packers want to come up. So the Packers are going to give us 13, and they're going to give us 78 according to the trade chart. We're going to give them 9. So we're going to offer that trade. That trade is going to go through. Packers are going to be on the clock. Packers are coming up. Because when the Packers were at their best, the Packers had Jordy Nelson, Donald Driver, Greg Jennings, James Jones, Jermichael Finley, all as targets for their quarterback. It helped make their quarterback successful. Now, as time went on, Aaron Rodgers became a guy that could work with anybody and could win MVPs with aging Randall Cobb, but that's not what you have now after you traded Aaron Rodgers to the New York Jets. You got Jordan Love, and you need to give him some weapons. So we're going to go ahead and give Jordan Love Jackson Smith-Njigba, who I believe is the best wide receiver in the entire class, an absolute technician as far as a route runner. Doesn't really have that breakaway speed of a Christian Watson, but I think he's more refined as a route runner than Christian Watson. And I think having Christian Watson on one side and then Jackson Smith-Njigba on the other side, I think you're going to have some fun in Green Bay, even with the new change at quarterback. So you get to pick 10. Pick 10, Bijan Robinson is on the board for the Philadelphia Eagles. But Houston, they're going to place a call to Philadelphia because Houston, they're still afraid Atlanta might take the last quarterback, right? So ironically enough, Houston is calling. They want to trade up. So we'll go ahead and we'll give them 12. We'll also give them 104, and they'll give us 10, right? So Philadelphia is going to drop 2 spots. Houston's going to jump back up after trading down. Going to offer that trade. Houston is going to get Anthony Richardson, right? So they're going to select Anthony Richardson. And I think for Anthony Richardson, you have a guy that is a raw talent. He has elite run ability. He has a strong arm. He throws well on the run. He has rocky mechanics at times. Footwork can be sloppy, and his accuracy is problematic. I just think Bobby Slowick and the rest of the staff will have some things to fix with him. And it's almost like you have to break him down and start him over again because there's just so many deficiencies. But that arm strength and that ability to run and throw on the run, you have to take the chance, especially at 10. So if you're the Texans, you come away with the potential franchise quarterback and a franchise edge rusher. That's a win, and you only gave up 1 pick to do it, right? So we're going to actually look at number 11 here, which is going to be the Atlanta Falcons via trade with the Tennessee Titans. So right here, the Falcons in general have issues on defense, right? People look at offense, they look at running back, and I've seen Bijan mocked to the Falcons, which makes no sense to me whatsoever, especially after Tyler Algier, averaged 4.9 yards per carry last year. I don't know why you would mock Bijan Robinson to the Falcons, especially at 8 where he's been. I wouldn't even take him here if I was the Falcons. Atlanta was 23rd in points allowed. Gave up the 8th most passing yards last season. They have to get better on defense quickly because you're in a division with Mike Evans and the budding star of Chris Olave. You need coverage. Hopefully A.J. Terrell bounces back from his subpar season and you don't have to rely on Jeffrey Okudah to be your number 2 corner. I think you'll draft the top corner on the board here. Get you a feisty corner who plays the ball well. Is a disruptor in the run game out of Illinois. I'm going to go ahead and select Devin Witherspoon, cornerback, Illinois. So that helps out Atlanta's defense and Arthur Smith. Pick 12, we're back on the clock here. Let's see what we have available for trade. Pittsburgh probably wants to come up for a corner, especially after Witherspoon went. Baltimore probably wants to come up for a receiver. Giants, same thing. Buffalo, maybe the same thing. Maybe some interior work there. But if you're Philadelphia, this is a situation where you have to look at your team and say, what do we need, right? You don't need Bijan Robinson. You don't, right? You can run the ball with your running backs, with Kenneth Gainwell. You can run the ball with your quarterback. You don't need Bijan Robinson. You need potentially an edge rusher, right? Especially with your change in defensive scheme. But sometimes you can't pass up a weapon like Bijan Robinson. You can't pass this up. It's kind of like Dallas when CeeDee Lamb's on the board. You can't pass. That's just something you can't pass up. So if you're a Philadelphia fan and you don't want Bijan Robinson, I want to say something to you, right? You're crazy. Can you imagine your offense? You were the best offense in football last year. Can you imagine your offense, those RPOs with Bijan Robinson, that play action with A.J. Brown running those deep post routes, Dallas Goedert and Devontae Smith on those crossing routes, and then you add Bijan Robinson to that? You scored almost 500 points last season if you're Philadelphia. You're going to blow that out of the water if you add Bijan Robinson to your team. I don't see why you would pass on him. Bijan Robinson is going to actually go to Philadelphia. Eagles are going to take Bijan Robinson. So get the pick 13. It's going to be Chicago. Chicago is going to select Paris Johnson Jr. Keep your quarterback protected. Keep the man upright, right? He ran for his life. He was productive running, but keep him upright. You want to develop him into a passer, like a serious passer, and I think get him some protection that he trusts, and he trusts Paris Johnson Jr. So we'll go ahead and draft Paris Johnson. I believe that Chicago is a lot closer than most people think. You have DJ Moore, Darnell Mooney, the emergence of Cole Kmet, get your offensive line solidified. I don't think you're that far off on offense, in my opinion. So we get to pick 14, which is going to be the New England Patriots. New England Patriots, I'm not sure what the issue is with Bill Belichick and McCorkle or Mac Jones, whatever you want to call them, but they need to figure out their tackle positions either way, whoever's playing quarterback. If you don't figure it out, whoever's playing quarterback is going to get lit up. So if we look at the offensive tackles, Broderick Jones is there, Darnell Wright is there, Anton Harris, and DeJuan Jones, right? So those are going to be the 4 tackles that we're going to potentially look at here. Riley Reif is on a 1-year deal. Trent Brown is in the last year of a 2-year deal. I think just for what the Patriots need, you need to get a more versatile offensive lineman, right? And Broderick Jones is a left tackle, and that's it. Darnell Wright is a right tackle, but also a guard. And I think for New England, I would take Darnell Wright just because that fits more of a New England style of player that can do a lot of different things, right? So Darnell Wright is going to go to New England at pick 14. We get to pick 15 here. And pick 15, they run on tackles. Here we go. We're going to take Broderick Jones. You just traded for Aaron Rodgers. It might be best to keep him upright. I would recommend that. Mekhi Becton, on the other hand, has lost a ton of weight and seems to be in good shape after suffering 2 knee injuries and missing 2 seasons. If he can remain healthy, then Broderick Jones will slide right into right tackle. If he doesn't remain healthy, Broderick Jones played all his snaps at left tackle in college, right? And I think if Mekhi Becton can't stay healthy, we need to have a conversation about his ability to last in the NFL. So, just being honest, Broderick Jones is a powerful player who dominates the edge, quick on his feet, loose hips, super athletic, franchise right tackle. I believe he's going to be a left tackle if Mekhi Becton can't, as I said, get his stuff together. So, get the pick 16. Now, if you are a Steelers fan or a Joey Porter fan, you're excited. You're giddy. Joey Porter's he's coming home. No, he's not. He's going to Washington, right? So Joey Porter is going to the Washington Commanders, specifically here in this particular mock. So we'll go ahead and draft Joey Porter Jr. there. The Commanders ranked 7th best in points allowed on defense, but they were 26th in takeaways, bottom half of the league. They need to get a playmaker in their secondary who can make plays on the ball. Now, Joey Porter only had 1 interception in college, but he had 11 pass deflections in his senior season, right? You turn those pass deflections into interceptions in the NFL. A tip ball can be intercepted. Cornerbacks make their money on tips and overthrows. And ironically, that's where Joey Porter thrives, right? So I think adding Joey Porter to the Washington Commanders secondary, I definitely think it helps out. And they definitely don't finish 26 in takeaways again. I promise you that. So you get to pick 17 after Joey Porter went to Washington. And we're actually going to look at a corner. And we're actually going to look at cornerback out of Maryland, Deonte Banks. The Steelers lost Cam Sutton to the Lions in free agency. And they went out to acquire veteran cornerback Patrick Peterson. Pittsburgh needs an infusion of youth at their cornerback position, and Deonte Banks fits their template for a corner. I call him a pest. He's annoying. He gets on wide receivers' nerves. He's always in the hip pocket. He puts hands on you. He's annoying to play against. And I think he's going to be even more productive and more annoying in the NFL. Fantastic player. As I said, like these 2 corners here, pick your poison, I guess. Pick whichever one you want. If you want to go for the good story, then just wait and send Joey Porter to Pittsburgh. But I do believe we're going to get corners here at 16 and 17 based on how the board may fall. So pick 18. The Detroit Lions are going to go ahead and select Kalijah Canty, defensive tackle out of Pitt. He's an undersized defensive tackle, but he's a superior athlete. He's strong at the point of attack. He has quickness to win inside He has the elite pass rush moves inside as well. Detroit has to get better on defense, and with the additions of guys like Christian Gonzalez and Kalijah Kancey, plus their draft class from last year we talked about, they could be cooking with some gas in Detroit. Being one of the worst defenses, they could go to one of the best defenses under Aaron Glenn very quickly with pieces like this. Kalijah Kancey is a perfect fit for the Detroit Lions, in my opinion. So we get the pick 19. The pick 19 is going to be a little bit interesting because pick 19, we are actually going to trade this pick here, right? So Minnesota is actually going to come up here. So Tampa's going to give up 19, and then Minnesota's going to give them 23 and 119. We're going to go ahead and force that trade through. So Minnesota's on the clock, right? Minnesota is coming up because Minnesota is trying to target a specific player. One player. It's one position that Minnesota is looking at. Although their defense was hot garbage last year, hot garbage, they fired their defensive coordinator, got Brian Flores in. They will be a much better defense. But Minnesota needs a quarterback, right? And I think with Kirk Cousins is not a bad quarterback. I think Kirk Cousins a lot of times gets hate for things that aren't really his fault. Like in the playoff game, the final play, like everybody's complaining. He threw a check down at the end of the game. It's like, well, hell, he didn't have any time to do anything, right? I just think that he gets too much hate, but I also believe that he's not a guy that's going to put you over the top. He never has been. He's just a guy that's going to pad stats and get a lot of numbers and make a lot of money, and a shout out to him for that. But I think if you're Minnesota, you have to get serious about your future at quarterback, especially with Kirk Cousins having a void year on his deal. After this upcoming season, I think you sit there, you ride it out with Kirk Cousins for the year. Whatever happens, happens. While Hendon Hooker is backing him up. I think Hendon Hooker is going in the first round. Just because of that fifth-year option, you redshirt him. You'll have him for 4 years to play. And just go from there and redo your quarterback room because Kirk Cousins is only going to take you so far. So we get to pick 20 here. Pick 20, Seattle is back on the clock. Seattle, they're going to continue to address their defense like they did with Jalen Carter. They're actually going to go back and double dip in Athens, and they're going to take Nolan Smith, the edge rusher, out of Georgia. So Nolan Smith brings an elite ability to set the edge in the run game. As I said, Seattle had one of the worst run defenses in the league. Nolan Smith brings the ability to turn the corner as an edge rusher as well. And Seattle at their peak had a run game that traveled and a hellacious defense, right? And they won the Super Bowl off of that, right? The Super Bowl MVP was Malcolm Smith, the linebacker, right? So you have to make life easier for Geno Smith. So run the ball like they did last year well with Kenneth Walker. Geno thrived in that particular scheme. Now on the defensive side of the ball, stop the run, sack the quarterback, which they did well as far as sacking the quarterback, get some takeaways with Tariq Woolen back there in the secondary, and you're back in the playoffs next year, right? So double dip at Georgia, get 2 dominant defensive players, and let's ride. So we get to pick 21. The Los Angeles Chargers are on the clock. The Chargers hired Kellen Moore to be their offensive coordinator. Kellen Moore loves to throw the football. I don't think Chargers, because a lot of people don't like the Cowboys, so typically you're not going to watch Cowboys games unless they're on Sunday Night Football or Monday Night Football. But Kellen Moore throws the football a lot, and it's because of the tree that Kellen Moore is from. Kellen Moore comes from that Jason Garrett tree where Jason Garrett, if you look back throughout the late 2000s to the 2010s, Dallas had one of the top passing offenses in the league with Tony Romo. A lot of yards, a lot of attempts, because that's what they like to do. They like to throw the ball, and Kellen Moore is no different. And he has the perfect quarterback to do that in Los Angeles. But the Chargers need to get younger at receiver. Keenan Allen turned 31 actually today. Happy birthday, Keenan Allen. Michael Williams will be 29 this year, and the Chargers just need some youth and some speed and some burst. And Zay Flowers fits. 800 yards from scrimmage in 3 of his 4 seasons at Boston College. He's an absolute weapon. And as I said, they like to throw the ball. It would not shock me if Justin Herbert led the league in passing, this year. And it wouldn't shock me if we were talking about him for MVP. I really believe that. So we're going to go ahead and give them a wide receiver, Zay Flowers here. So we get to pick 22. Baltimore is going to be on the clock here is they are going to select a wide receiver, right? Baltimore needs to stop sabotaging their quarterback. They have to get serious about adding pieces around this quarterback. You're not winning with Mark Andrews and Rashad Bateman. You're just not. It's not enough. Not in this era. Not when you're in a division or in a conference with Tyler Boyd, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins, right, and Joe Burrow, or Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. Like, you have to have more if you're serious about contending for AFC championships and world championships, right? And so I think if you're Baltimore, you have to get the explosive receiver, the one that averaged 15.9 and 14.8 yards per catch over the last 2 seasons at USC. Help your quarterback. Also, pay your quarterback. Quarterbacks are hard to find, right? So you might want to pay one if you have one. So we're going to go ahead and select Jordan Addison, wide receiver, out of USC to Baltimore. So we're going to get to pick 23. Of course, this pick was traded. This was actually Minnesota's pick. Of course, we traded that with Tampa. So Tampa's on the clock here. Tampa put pen to paper with Baker Mayfield for a year. They need to get better on the interior of the offensive line. I think a guy like an Osiris Torrance down here out of Florida, the guard, I think he brings that immediately. I know people think Tampa could possibly go for a quarterback or take Hendon Hooker. I wouldn't do it. And I'm being honest. I don't want to be disrespectful to the rest of the NFC South, but Tampa seriously could win the division with Baker Mayfield at quarterback, and I'm not joking, right? Like, because the division is so bad. You're gonna have a young quarterback in Carolina, right? You don't know who the quarterback is or you know who the quarterback is in New Orleans, but you don't know what he's going to be in New Orleans, right? Derek Carr was not this guy that was lighting the world on fire in Las Vegas, right? And then you look at Atlanta with Desmond Ridder. You know, let's be honest. You know, so I think this division is wide open, and I think, in all honesty, you could win this division with Baker Mayfield and Rachaad White and Mike Evans and those players that you have in Tampa. So I'm going to go ahead and give them Osiris Torrance. Let's solidify the interior of the offensive line for Baker Mayfield. So we'll get to pick 24, which is going to be the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars are picking at 24. You know, typically they were picking at 1 and 2 and 7. Now they're picking at the back half of the draft. It's amazing what good coaching can do for you, right? Shout out to Doug Peterson. So Jacksonville needs a Swiss Army knife in their secondary. Andre Sisco is coming into his own at free safety. Rayshawn Jenkins finished the season with 116 tackles and 3 interceptions. They're good at safety. But a guy like Brian Branch, right? Brian Branch out of the University of Alabama here. He's listed as a safety, but he spent a lot of time in the slot as well. So I call him a Swiss Army knife. He can kind of do whatever. If you need him to cover the tight end, he can do that. You need him to cover the slot receiver, he can do that, and he'll do it well, right? And that's just a guy you can always use if you're a good coach. Hey, Brian, go play this position here. Sure. I'll go in the box. Sure, I got it. Drop back into coverage, play center field. I got it. Swiss Army knife. So I think he's going to go to Jacksonville, help out their defense, which is, on the come up as well. So shout out to Jacksonville. I like the Jaguars. Just as a football fan, I think a lot of people doubted them coming into the season, doubted Doug Peterson. And I think people just doubt Doug Peterson in general. I think he's one of the more underappreciated coaches in football. So pick 25, the New York Giants are going to be on the clock here. And, I don't think I need to say much else, right? Like, I'm just going straight to receiver. I won't look at anything else. The Kenny Golladay experience didn't work. The Kadarius Toney experience didn't work. Quentin Johnston is the guy I would take here. He averaged 17.8 yards per catch in college. Johnston was one of the most explosive players in the nation. You pair him up with Darren Waller and this is imperative, a healthy Wan'Dale Robinson. You could work wonders for Daniel Jones. Wan'Dale tore his ACL in the best game of his career on November 20th against the Lions. So if you get that kid healthy, pair him up with Quentin Johnston, Darren Waller, and Saquon Barkley, I think you've completely retooled your offense, and I think you're going to be successful. You were in the playoffs with no receivers. I think if you add some receivers, you might go a little deeper in the playoffs. So pick 26, we'll first select that. Pick 26, we're going to actually look at Dallas here. So Dallas specifically has has made some comments about a certain position during this draft process. Now, that particular position is tight end, right? Mike McCarthy has made it known that he wants to run the ball and that tight end is a primary position in his eyes. And Dallas, they let Dalton Schultz walk in free agency with the intentions of drafting a tight end in the draft. Now, they had an undrafted free agent. They had a day 3 pick at tight end as well, but they're serious about running the football. And I think running the football and catching the ball, I think the guy that does that does both in terms of blocking and catching is Notre Dame tight end Michael Mayer, right? So Michael Mayer is going to end up in Dallas to be a weapon for Dak Prescott, along with CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup and Brandon Cooks and Tony Pollard. So at pick 27, if you're Buffalo, obviously the interior is where you want to kind of get better at. You kind of want to help out Josh Allen, but when you look at your team, or you look at this board specifically, there is one name on this board that is flashing. It's flashing like crazy. And that's Myles Murphy. Myles Murphy is just, we did a film session on him a few days ago. Myles Murphy he does everything. Like you see a guy like Lucas Van Ness who does everything, but Myles Murphy is more athletic, right? And I think he can go in and play a 5-tech. He can rush outside. He can rush inside. He's just an absolute weapon for Buffalo, who kind of rotates their pass rushers and their defensive linemen around. And I think Myles Murphy fits seamlessly into their pass rush and defensive line rotation. And I think getting him here at 27 is an absolute steal. It's an absolute steal. So Myles Murphy is going to go to Buffalo. Pick 28 is going to be the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals are going to add to their offense, strangely enough. They did sign Irv Smith Jr., but that's not stopping me from drafting the most athletic tight end in the class, and that is tight end out of Utah, Dalton Kincaid. Kincaid is a big receiver. That's what I call him. He's just a big receiver. Add him to that offense with Chase Boyd and Higgins, with Joe Burrow throwing. I think you have an offense that can go to Kansas City again and beat them this time. Right? You have an offense that can roll into Buffalo and beat them. That can roll into, or have Jacksonville roll into your town. You can beat them, right? I think you have more than enough weapons, and that's what you want to do. You want to continue to add weapons around your quarterback so he can continue to be successful. Dalton Kincaid did have a back issue in college, which is a little scary. So maybe at 28 where they're picking, maybe they try to go up to maybe 24, maybe 25, try to get ahead of Dallas to get Michael Mayer. Maybe they prefer Michael Mayer. But I do believe that they're going to take a tight end in the first round. I think Dalton Kincaid is the best one on the board. Super athletic guy. He'll fit perfectly in Cincinnati. So pick 29, the New Orleans Saints are on the clock. Cam Jordan is getting up there in age. He'll be 34 next year. They have to get younger on their defensive line. And I think when you look at a guy like Lucas Van Ness, who can, as I said, like Myles Murphy, can play every position on the defensive line. He is more of a power rusher. And I think sliding him inside at 3-tech or putting him at 5-tech, I think he'll thrive in that New Orleans defense, especially, with Cam Jordan still being there and still being a productive player, even as he's getting older. And then when Cam Jordan is done or that deal is up, which is happening pretty soon, you have your guy that can be your primary rusher off the edge there. So at pick 30, the Eagles are going to look at their defense. The rich get richer. Philly led the league in sacks last season. Now, I actually wanted to give them, if we look down here into the defensive line here, and we'll look at the defensive ends as well. We'll add them both here, edge rushers. So Will McDonald was an interesting pick. Will McDonald is more of a like a speed rusher, more of like a Hassan Reddick type build. So I didn't want to go there. You have Fletcher Cox, you have Jordan Davis. You didn't really want to look interior, in my opinion. I was looking, at Atabare, and I was looking at Enadike Uzama, right? Both one out of Kansas State, one out of Northwestern. And so I ended up going with Felix, and I went with Felix because I think he's a much better fit, and he's a potential replacement for Brandon Graham. as well. And so if we would have kept Jonathan Gannon, I probably would have went with Atabare, but I just think with the defensive scheme that they're going to be in, we're going to go ahead and take just the absolute, in my opinion, best edge rusher currently on the board right now. Was Anadike Uzama, and then Will McDonald was second, and then Atabari would have been third. So we're going to go ahead and take him. And then at pick 31, Kansas City, they lost Orlando Brown Jr. to Cincinnati, but Brett Veach does a great job of adding pieces around Patrick Mahomes, especially cheap pieces. So we're actually going to look at the offensive line here. Got to keep our quarterback upright, and we're actually going to go and select Dwan Jones, the offensive tackle out of Ohio State. He's a big boy. He's a big boy, and you're replacing another big boy. So I think he's the ideal right tackle there for the Kansas City Chiefs. So here's the final board here as we start off with Bryce Young going to Carolina, Will Levis to Indianapolis, Will Anderson to Arizona, Tyree Wilson to Houston, Seattle takes Jalen Carter, Detroit takes Christian Gonzalez, Las Vegas takes Peter Skoronski, the Titans take C.J. Stroud, Packers take Jackson Smith and Jigba, the Texans take Anthony Richardson, Atlanta takes Devin Witherspoon, Bijan Robinson goes 12 to Philadelphia, Paris Johnson Jr. goes to Chicago, Darnell Wright to New England, the Jets select Broderick Jones. We get our run on corners here at 16 and 17 with Joey Porter going to Washington, Deonte Banks to Pittsburgh. At 18, Kalijah Cansey to Detroit. 19, Minnesota trades up to select Hendon Hooker. Pick 20, Nolan Smith to Seattle. Zay Flowers to Kellen Moore's offense in Los Angeles. Jordan Addison goes to help out Lamar Jackson or whoever the quarterback is in Baltimore at 22. Osiris Torrance at guard on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offensive line at 23. Get your Swiss Army knife if you're Jacksonville at 24 with Brian Branch. 25, the Giants get a receiver, their biggest need by far. Dallas gets a blocking tight end and a receiving tight end all in one. They want to run the ball. They want to throw it to the tight end. They get their guy at 26. 27, Miles Murphy to Buffalo. 28, Dalton Kincaid goes to join Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, and T. Higgins, and Joe Burrow in Cincinnati to be one of the most explosive offenses in the league. At pick 30, New Orleans is going to select Lucas Van Ness, the edge rusher out of Iowa. Pick 30, Felix Anadike Uzama is going to go to Philadelphia to potentially replace Brandon Graham. And at pick 31, to wrap it up, Dwan Jones is going to Kansas City to protect Joe Burrow. Hope you guys enjoyed the mock draft. Hope you guys enjoyed the actual draft today, tomorrow, and Saturday. I'll be on Twitter. It's in the description. It's me, Jace_FB. I greatly appreciate it. Give the video a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button. Notification bell as well. I greatly appreciate it. And enjoy the NFL draft.